you guys very, very much for being here. Can everyone hear me in the back? Okay. Sorry that you're all standing. If somebody wants to go downstairs and just ask me about 3D print like the chairs, we can start that process. In the meantime, we'll just have you stand. I really appreciate it. So we're going to go over some stuff today. The stuff we're going over is the absolute cutting edge of what's out there, okay? So that means we're going to do some live demos. Some of those demos might not go so well, okay? Some of the stuff we're going to talk about literally was released in the last 72 hours, okay? So really new technology. We're trying to keep it really fresh for you. We're also going to try to build a base of knowledge so that by the time we get to the end of this thing, we've brought everyone with us, no matter how much you know about AI or 3D printing, okay? So we're going to do all those things, but this goes a lot smoother if we all feel like a family, because we're going to have to do some things that are just really hard to do, and sometimes hard things break. So if you have questions, raise your hand. There is no format in terms of questions at the end. We will have time for that. But if you have a question in the middle of it, throw up a hand, shout something out. We're all a family. Let's just get through this thing together, okay? Perfect. So we're going to jump in and go over some introductions. Give me a half a second. All right. So the name of the talk is Bringing Your Ideas to Life. Let's hope this works. Let's see what happens. Bringing Your Ideas to Life with AI and 3D Printing. Indy Toy Lab, as he mentioned, is the name of our company. We're a small team of independent toy and game designers based here in Carmel, Indiana. We do projects for people like Hasbro, Mattel, everyone up there. So these are all of our partners. This is actually a subset of our partners. You're probably going to see some brands you know. Yeah. Who of the younger ones in the audience, who could shout out a brand that's your favorite on the board? Rubik. Pokemon. That's awesome. Star Wars, great. Okay. So these are the brands we work for, right? And we get to design and play in their sandbox all the time. And the reason we get to work for them is because there are people in the world like Walmart. This used to make sense. Now everybody's on Amazon, okay? That used to make sense to people. But now you probably buy your toys and games from Amazon. That's fun. But there are stores in the world like Walmart, Target, Amazon, and the like. They need product. So they reach out to people like Hasbro and Mattel and say, hey, I really need some toys. Hasbro and Mattel need to make those toys. But they rely on people like us, teams like ours, to design them and give them to them. And you would think all of the toys are designed by Hasbro and Mattel. And that's actually not true. 80% of all toys on the market are designed by independent design firms like ours. Okay? There's about 150 people in the world that do what we do, about 7 large teams, and then a lot of individuals as well. But the vast majority of these people are actually 1- and 2-person shops. They're husbands and wives, their father, son, that design these toys and submit them into Hasbro and Mattel. And if those and there's a lot of other companies too, I'm shortcutting that. But if you have an interest in doing this, the barrier to entry is really, really low. And I'm happy to introduce you to these companies and show you how to get onto those portals and submit your own things. So find me afterwards if that interests you. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about our process. Then we're going to talk a little bit about what is AI. Then we're going to talk about what is 3D printing. And then we're going to put it all together at the end. So what we do is we make toys. You may have seen this one downstairs. There's a couple places this one is featured. It's one of our newer ones that's quite large in terms of distribution. So there's a model of this showing in the Digital Media Lab that shows some of our sketches and then how those sketches became a product. And we've also got a functioning model down at our booth downstairs. But let's talk about how we do what we do. So we need, sometimes Hasbro will come to us with a brief, for instance, that says like, hey, we really like Hungry Hungry Hippos, or we certainly like how much it's selling. So what if we took something like Hungry Hippos and combined it with sports to make a new product? Could you help us brainstorm what that would look like? So we start to do sketches like this, where we say, okay, sports, maybe athletes, maybe the hippos are kind of not so great athletes, we can play up that. We start drawing things up like this. And as we do, we start to feel the product out. And then we take those sketches and they become more refined sketches, like what would the mechanism be? And then we do all this. Now it's important that we do all this on paper, because it is way cheaper to make a mistake on paper than it is to make it in plastic. It's faster, and the iteration time is faster too. So we go through a lot of sketches. Those sketches become more and more refined, and then over time we get to a point where we 3D sculpt and model it, and then it becomes a product that gets to go on shelves. So that's kind of the way that process works. Same thing here. They come, they go, hey, we really like Mr. Potato Head, or Potato Head. I think they changed the name. So we really like Potato Head, but we need a small impulse buy $2 Potato Head. We can't afford to sell Mr. Potato Head for $2. What do? So we say, well, what if we just made them small but gave them characters? And they say, well, we really like that idea, but then we have to go pay Marvel, we have to go pay Stranger Things on top of you. So maybe we don't do characters. We said, yeah, but we really like characters. And they say, well, it's great, we really like it, but that's going to cost us a bunch of money because we got to pay. But we really like characters, guys. Can we do characters? Anybody know what this is from? Any of the younger ones in the audience? What character is that? Yeah, nice. Who's that? Right? So we like characters, but they're like, we don't want to pay for characters. Like, okay, fine. So what if we come up with our own line of characters, and we make them do silly stuff? Like, what if we put Play-Doh in the back of it, and we have them poop out French fries, and we call it Fryeria? Look, most people hate most of the things we make, okay? And that's okay. We have a 1% placement rating. That means for every 100 items we make, one of them gets a nod from a manufacturing firm to go into production. So we fail 99% of the time. Fryeria was a fail. But they were like, we like this idea of your own characters. Make us a bunch of them. I said, okay, fine. We'll make a bunch of little bitty characters, and we'll call them Tater Tots. And that's what ended up making it to market. I like the other stuff better, but this is fine. We'll take it, right? Tater Tots. So these are actually downstairs. You can go see them as well. So that's the kind of work we do. Now I'm gonna have to go a little bit quicker through some of this stuff. You can just get some ideas. Sometimes we have silly ideas. They don't tell us what they want. We just come up with our own stuff. Say, what about a narwhal on a wall? A wall narwhal? Fine. They didn't like that. But they said, what if you made it a deer and we put red Solo cups in them, and now you can play deer pong? It's got two different audiences. Okay, so that's another concept we did, and it's downstairs. You can see that one too. Throw it, I dare you. I didn't come up with that. I wish I did. This is top secret. You can't tell anyone, especially not the camera that's filming it. This is stuff that we're working on that we're not allowed to show anyone. This will be between us. But this is stuff that maybe it hasn't made it to market yet. This is the stuff we're working on right now. So we look at stuff like Nerf blasters are really, really cool. Has anyone seen a Nerf blaster specifically designed for maybe a female? There's not a ton of them out there. There's actually three total in all the years of Nerf. Specifically marketed to make a female feel like, hey, I can join in and blaster play too. Now, anyone can buy any toy, we know that. But to make them feel like they're included, so we said, what if we did some popular characters, and instead of Nerf darts, they're ice crystals, and you launch them like Spider-Man, but now they're Elsa's ice blasters. So that's a concept we're working on. We're going to show a bunch of this. We'll probably fast forward through some of it, but you can start to see how we start to sketch things out. We make a lot of decisions on paper before going into 3D modeling. Actually, I'll go back one. This is kind of fun. So we've all seen, you've all seen those, they're downstairs, the lightsabers that you fling out, right? Again, how do we include everyone and make a product that maybe appeals to everyone? Let's try something like maybe an Elsa ice blaster that now I can fight too, as well, stuff like that. Yep, you can see lots of different versions of these things. Here's some stuff we're working on. Again, just complex kind of mechanical moving parts. And how does this fit into 3D printing? We're going to get into all that in a minute. But the point is that almost every time you 3D print or make something or sculpt something, you're going to want to start with an idea in your head of what it is. And for us, that tends to take shape on paper first. Here's something we're working on. What if your drone could dance? And then you could dance with your drone? We'll move on. Okay, so let's get to the point of the talk. All right, so bringing your ideas to life with AI and 3D printing. As I mentioned, we're going to break this into two discrete categories. We're going to talk about AI, we're going to talk about 3D printing, and then we're going to smoosh them together. So what is AI? Can anybody answer that for me? I love it. You're hand up first.
Short for artificial intelligence.
Okay, I've got an internship ready for you when you're ready. Anybody else? What does it mean to you? What is AI?
Artificial intelligence is basic, which is what it stands for. It basically is a machine that learns based on training that the programmer gives it, so it learns how to perform a specific task and with high efficiency.
Way better answers than I expected. This is very, very good. You're exactly right. Artificial intelligence is a general way of expressing that computers can think in ways that mimic human nature. That's exactly what that said. You could have written that definition better than they did. Outstanding work. But we kind of have gotten to a point where AI means something a little more specific than that. You're actually more correct than I expected. It is a general computer intelligence. But when you see on TikTok or YouTube and someone's talking about this new AI something, what is that AI thing doing usually these days? Yes?
It's using user input data in order to generate more accurate content for users that's more suited to their
interest. He said using user input to generate something that's more complicated on the output, right? And that's what we're getting into is kind of a user or a generative AI. AI to generate something, a picture, some text, and a 3D model, things like that. Who can name some of the popular AIs? Put your hand up back there. Can you name any of the popular AIs?
No, I was gonna say something.
Go ahead. Please go ahead.
Sometimes things they say that AI does they're in many different games, like where you combine different elements.
Yeah.
They use their knowledge on things that are already happening in the world to make different sprites or characters that you can then combine with the other ones.
Perfect. So like sometimes in video games, AI is like a pathfinding, like this AI is marching on this thing and doing some stuff like that. I'm going to get to you in just a minute, okay? Give me 1 second. The question at hand right now is who can name some of the popular AIs? So did you want to answer that one? Okay, go ahead. ChatGPT, that's like the big famous one, right? Right here.
Sora.
What was it?
Sora.
Okay, I'm going to learn some today, it turns out. What do you got?
Dolly 3.
Dolly 3 is an outstanding one. One more for you?
Gemini.
Gemini, okay. How many do you think there are?
Hundreds.
Hundreds of thousands. This is the limited list.
Oh.
This is a limited list, and I didn't include any of the popular ones for that reason, right? So, and there's new ones every day. There's somebody working on one, this one's freaking me out. There's somebody working on one right now where they take all the DNA from CODIS, like all the crime DNA they collected, compared to the mug shots, and now they're working on being able to upload a DNA sequence and output a picture of the guy. So like there's new stuff happening every 5 minutes in this space. And this is just a little bit, you can see, we've broken it out by there's some that will write text for you, some that will make images, some that will make sounds. They replicate your voice, so you can just type your script for your YouTube video and it'll talk it for you. Code, the fact that it can write code should scare all of us. Chatbots, video. I don't even know what an ML platform is. Search, gaming, data, there's a lot of stuff that AI is doing. And there's quite a few of them out there. Let's see if I can click to the next one. Oh good, I'm supposed to do a live demo. Hey, everybody, cross your fingers. So, let's see one of these things, because a lot of you seem to know what AI is, and that's outstanding. But we're gonna try to get everyone on the same page and show some of the cool stuff it can do. So somebody mentioned ChatGPT. Let's start there for a moment. So one of the things you can do with ChatGPT is GPT is a language processing model, and basically you can just talk to it in a conversational tone, ask it for things, it'll do its best to give it to you. So who has an idea of a question we could ask ChatGPT? Yellow, I saw you first. Who's better, Messi or Ronaldo? Okay. Who is better, Messi or I'm going to hurt someone's feelings. Ronaldo? Let's see what happens. I don't know how to spell his name. The debate over who is better, it's going to give you a long form thing. Both players, ultimately, whether better. All right, that's a lame answer. That's fine. Matters of opinion. That's the thing. Well, go ahead. What did you want to ask?
Good question. What was the video game crash of the 1980s?
What was the video game crash of the 1980s? What was the video game crash of the 1980s? 1980, sorry. And it's going to give you a bunch of text basically on its research. Now, the way we're using it today is to kind of summarize the internet. The two questions we just asked basically said, you go out on the internet, you learn about some stuff, you summarize it to me. But what about generative stuff, where we want it to come up with something that maybe has never been done before? So what about, let's say I'm sitting at home and I'm bored, and I want to play a text adventure game, but I don't have any. Maybe I could ask it to create one immediately for me. So let's do this. Let's play a text adventure game where I am stuck in a library in Carmel, Indiana, and I need to get out. Ask me the first question. Now, it's going to go through, understand what I asked, build a world around that, and then we're going to start to play a game together. And it's going to come up with these things in real time. Okay? So let's see what it says. You awaken and you find yourself in a dimly lit hall. Oh, the light's vacillating. We got that going. Main hall of a vast, seemingly different library. Carmel, Indiana. Your favorite version. Blah, blah, blah. Do you want to start by searching the reception desk for items? Search. Right? Now it's going to take. It doesn't know what I'm trying to say. It's going to interpret that. You stride over to the reception desk. Now what's fascinating is we did a demo for this for Hasbro recently, where we took this and we took Benedict Cumberbatch's voice, and we had him narrate everything, and we created an interactive soundscape where the basic, like the different environments created sounds that were done by AI, and then you kind of put on your headphones and you listen to the story and you kind of got engrossed in it, and then you spoke your answers. I'd like to go left, and it would take you left. And you can kind of create this whole world in audio and video just like that, instantly, generatively, and it will never be the same for any two people who do this. And that's kind of an interesting thing. One more thing I'll show as a quick demo is, let's say, write some code in Python to play the game, I don't know, Pong, let's say. So not only does it know every language in the world, it knows every programming language in the world, okay? So it can take, if you want to have an idea for an app, you can say, write me an app that will do my budget. And it will start to output code that you can then upload into Xcode with varying levels of success that will generate for you an app. Now when you put all that code into your compiler and you say, hey, this didn't work, I got an error, you can paste that error back in here and it will say, great, let's fix that error, and it'll fix it. Because it knows every language, it knows every programming language, it has rock solid ability to deduce and use logic. And any minute now, we should have a Pong game. Now it won't be playable here unless I, of course. Oh boy, well, let me promise you that sometimes it works. We're going to skip ahead for time's sake today, but I can show that to anybody that would like to see it a little bit later. So bear with me. Hang tight. All right. Onward up. When did AI come out? Anybody have an answer for that? One up here? Sorry, that's how you put it.
It's around 2000s, 2010s, I think.
2010. Anybody got a more specific answer all the way in the back? 97. Good guess. As good as any other day. Okay. AI has really surged in popularity, but it's actually a little bit older than that. Let's watch a quick video of some different clips. Oh boy, we got something going on in the background. Everybody hang tight. Yoink. All right.
So the naming of artificial intelligence is normally attributed to John McCarthy organizing the summer conference at Dartmouth in the 1950s.
What exactly is artificial intelligence?
The thinking machine. Being a general-purpose machine, it could be programmed to do things which in humans require intelligence. The field became known as artificial intelligence.
And finally, Mr. McDaniel, does this mean the end of human translators? Say yes.
We take a look at artificial intelligence on this edition of the Computer Chronicles. Welcome to the Computer Chronicles. I'm Stuart Chaffee, and this is Gary Kildall. And Gary, this is a product called Ractor. Ractor claims to be able to have an intelligent conversation with you. I just asked it if it uses artificial intelligence.
Set. We're riding on the internet. Cyberspace set free. Hello, virtual reality.
AI is not something special that you add to an existing program. It's an approach.
So I guess this is a story of how it changed our lives. Maybe it will yours too.
And the kids are improving in their grades and communication skills.
Which makes me happy, as I would sure like them to go to college someday.
Me too, bud.
You are a real boy. At least as real as I've ever made one.
Well, Stanford was one of the early pioneers in artificial intelligence. Even when I arrived in the 70s, it was already a hotbed of research.
Someone asked me, well, should we panic now? Of course, we should have been panicking before.
That's true. So it's been around for a minute, right? How long has AI been, oops, let's not do that. How long has it, or when did AI come out? 1956 is a generally accepted answer, right? So a little bit longer than we expected, right? It's kind of changed in how we view it recently. Here's a hot button topic. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? Anybody got an opinion on that? Right here, Red.
It's either, like, it depends on how you use it.
I don't need to be up here anymore.
If you're planning to use it for world domination, that's a bad thing.
What are you planning?
Definitely just for just game programs.
Probably not world domination. All right. So is it a good thing or a bad thing? What do you think about this? I don't know, look at the time. Where are we at? What do you think about this quote? It will make our children weak, robbing them of the joy of thinking for themselves and solving their own problems. Anybody feel like that's accurate about AI? Maybe? We got one. So this actually isn't a quote about AI. It's a quote written in 1813 about a different invention called the book, or more specifically, the novel. This was written about the novel. See, novels came out around this time, and we were certain that people would just lose themselves in books and never have to solve their own problems because I can just watch everything have a happy ending. We deplore so much reading. So is it a good thing or a bad thing? It's about how you use it. It really is. It's just about how you use it. And everyone will always be scared of new technology. It's just what happens. Okay? But we work it into our workflow, and we as people tend to make the best of things most of the time and the worst of things occasionally enough to be fixed by those who make good of it. Here's a little chart that I love that I could spend all day on, but my wife has assured me that you're not as interested in as I am. But this is basically the amount of fuel a body takes to move itself when compared to its weight. So basically up high, not super efficient, down low, really efficient. So you want to be low on this graph. Okay? The lower you are, the better you are at the job of moving. So mice, not super efficient. Fruit flies, not great. Humans, we're just kind of okay. We're not really superstars. But the people who did this research thought to add not just a human, but a human on a bicycle. And we blow the competition away. Because as humans, we are the tools we make. The tools we make allow us to go further, faster, longer, more efficiently. So what is AI to me? It's a 21st century bicycle. You can ride it into war, or you can ride it up the street to buy flowers for your grandma. This is your call. But all it is a tool. It will let us go further, faster, more efficiently if we use it for the right reasons. So what is 3D printing? Well, there's a lot of it downstairs. You could start there. But it's important to realize that the world we live in is made up of layers. We happen to live in a world we recognize layers of atoms, really small layers, right? But anything that can be carved up into discrete layers can be viewed this way. So here's a quick little... Woo, we're going to want to start muting stuff pretty soon. So here's a video of a skull, right? A bunch of layers. You can take any solid and cut it into layers, and it kind of becomes somewhat recognizable. We're going to try a live demo about that. So let's see here. To make the point on layers, can anybody tell me what this is? Anybody have an idea what that is? What is it?
It's a filter for a water pitcher.
Could be. All right. So let's add some more layers. Let's subdivide it, make the layers smaller, and add more of them, and see if we can get a little better resolution on what it is. Okay. So it's going to take a little time to think, and hopefully it doesn't take forever. We're going to add twice as many layers, make those layers smaller, and see if we can figure out what this is. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to see. All right. So can anybody tell me what that is now? What is that?
Spinal cord.
Could be a spinal cord. Let's add.
It's a grow.
I heard a Baby Yoda. Let's add some more layers. We'll make the layers smaller. We'll add more of them and see if we can get a little bit better resolution on what the thing is. Could be water. What? All right. This is all we're doing in 3D printing, okay? We're chasing smaller layers and more of them, all right? We're trying to get to those atom layers, which some people are doing, and I'm not one of them. So that is the concept. There are two types of 3D, there's a lot, but for our purposes today, we're going to talk about two. There are two types of 3D printing. There's FDM and resin. FDM stands for something like fused deposition material. I don't actually remember. And resin we'll talk about as well in just a moment. So let's talk about how 3D printing works from a FDM perspective. I'm going to play a quick video. So we basically act like a hot glue gun. We squirt out a bunch of plastic and draw a shape. And then we move up a layer and we squirt out a bunch of plastic and we draw another shape. And we move up a layer and we squirt out a bunch of plastic. It's basically drawing with a small hot glue gun, and then you just pick it up. That's how the whole thing works. Now, if you do that enough times and you create enough of those tiny layers, now you're getting something that looks less like a water filter and more like a Yoda, and we start to get more and more recognizable items. I'm not going to make you watch this whole video. So that's how FDM printing works. Basically, I have a bunch of plastic on a spool. That plastic gets melted like a hot glue gun. I draw a shape. I pick up a little bit. I draw another shape. What's up, bud?
Isn't the FDM printing is what we use in the digital media lab?
Yes. I don't know if there's resin printers as well, but for most of it, if you see the material come on a spool and like all that plastic is wound up on it, that's FDM printing. So great job, yeah. There's another kind of printing. Oh yeah, what's up?
I've once had my fingers painted with resin.
You did? Okay. Hey, that's such perfect timing because that's what we're about to talk about. So she said that she once had her fingers painted with resin. So this is something that some of the females in the audience may be familiar with. You go into the nail shop, they make you put your hand under this light. What is that light? Does anybody know what that light is?
UV light.
UV light. That's exactly right. Ultraviolet light. So basically in that nail polish is some pigment and then a resin that hardens under UV light. It sees UV light, it gets hard really fast. It stays liquid if it doesn't see that. And then it's kind of unreversibly hard. So what you do is you put it on, you style it, you put it under the light, that bakes it and hardens it instantly, right? And now I've got these beautiful nails. So why do we care? Well, that's exactly what 3D printing with resin is. So basically, instead of painting it on your nails, we fill a tub with it. We fill a tub with it, we take a plate, we squish that plate all the way to the bottom of the tub. Then we lift it up a couple of microns, not a lot. Then we have underneath that, we have a television screen, LCD screen for a TV. And then remember, we need to get those individual layers, right? So we flash an image on that screen that is the first sliced layer of that image. And then instead of using white light like this, we use UV light as our backing bulb. And then we harden those fingernails, harden that image right on there. Then we pick the plate up, put it back down, and then we just keep doing that, hardening that resin every couple of microns until we get a finished part. So we're going to watch that demonstration really quickly, and I'll shut up when we watch it because the music's cool. You're going to hear the music a lot today. And back down, put another layer on, do it again. Just like putting your fingers underneath the nail light. Then we wash all that extra stuff off of there. This part's really gross and annoying in real life. I wish it was this cute and easy. And we show it a light one more time, bake it, make the whole thing hard. What it allows you to do is basically, now this is time-lapse, you can notice the clock on the right, on the left, as you pull this plate out, it basically makes something out of nothing. It appears out of this vat of goo. So the vat is only this thick. This is all just the light bulbs in the screen. So we're pulling that giant sculpture out of something this small. And then you can see how it's all glossy. Wash all that off, bake it under a UV light just like your fingernails, and we've got ourselves a little, those are sports up there. All right. What if it falls off? Is that what you said?
No,
Oh, great question. Yeah, I get really sad. And what's the next generation of 3D printing? Okay. Well, this is brand new. Basically, the idea is, okay, we talked about layers. What if we just ignored layers and printed everything all at once, instantly, in one place in 20 seconds? And that's what this new technology is. So basically, we rotate the design, and we just hit it with light as it rotates, and then the whole thing just appears in 20 seconds inside of a vat of liquid, just like that. So this is what they're actually working on for the space station. It's gravity independent, so you can basically just load up a vial. It doesn't need gravity to work, and it just projects 2D image with 3D information. So where the light crosses other beams of light, you have a light intense enough to cure the resin, and you literally instantly get parts. So we go from 12-hour print time to 12-second print time. And it is probably where we're going in the future. Right now, we're limited to really small sizes, but you can see almost instantly you can produce a thinker like that. So that's what's coming. Oh, I got lots of questions in the back.
Did I hear you say you do beams from two directions and that makes the intensity high enough to trigger the reaction?
I can already tell that you're going to ask questions I'm not smart enough to answer. I can tell you what I know. What I know is you basically you have two independent light sources that are, let's say, 70% of the strength needed to cure the resin, and then basically where those beams intersect, you now have a sufficient amount of energy to cure it. That's all I know. One more question here.
So, support beams are also in red, so there are support beams in all 3D prints.
This is a great question. I'm going to take a moment to talk about this, and then I'll pass this around. So like, this is a tough part to print, right? Because there's all these holes in it, right? And if I wanted to print it like this, if I started here and I started printing like this, at some point I need to print over thin air, right? Well, how do I print over thin air? And his point was, well, you could use support structure. So you can print a little bit of a wasted plastic underneath that will hold it up, and then you can print on top of it, and then when you're done, you'll just pull that support or that wasted structure out. I'm going to finish this thought, and then I'll come back to you. So the other way, and we're demonstrating this downstairs, is you can actually, don't do this without your parents' permission, you can actually just flip the printer upside down. It doesn't need gravity to work. There's nothing in the system that's gravity dependent. So you can just flip the whole printer upside down, and then when you get to this part, you just kind of draw the line, and then gravity pulls it down, which is up. And now when I print the next layer, it's bending into that, and then it's fusing. So we just print all of these kinds of parts. Instead of using supports, we just print them upside down. And it scares me every time, but it always works. So if you want to see here, I'll pass it through. If you want to see that printing live, just pass it around for everybody to see. We have a live demo of that downstairs. It's not super exciting, but it's kind of cool.
How small is it?
This is very small. Right now, this is small. Yeah, but everything starts bad and then gets better.
What is that called?
I don't know. Back to things I do know. So, can we use generative AI, the stuff that we type it in, and then it produces a model? Can we use that to make 3D models? And the answer is just barely. Like, we're just at the point where we can start to do that. We're within the last 6 weeks of actually being able to do that. And like, you could do it before. It wasn't very good. It's still not great. But we're going to go over that process for a minute. And we're going to talk about 2 ways to take ideas that are in your brain and then get them into real models. Okay, so the first model is we're going to take AI image reference. So we're going to talk to AI and say, I want an image like this. I want to make me a thing that looks like this. And it'll give me a picture. Then I take the picture and I give it to a different AI that's going to sculpt that picture. Okay? And then because it's just not perfect yet, I'm going to have to refine it a little bit myself. Okay, but did anyone use these sculpting iPads downstairs? Anybody use those? So there's some iPads downstairs where you can do 3D modeling on your own, right? You just kind of wiggle your finger around and it models. Usually, when you start to sculpt something, you're given a sphere. I can show you an example. So when you open up, this is Nomad, a sculpting app. The first thing it shows you is a sphere, and then it's my job to make that sphere into a duck or whatever I want. But you always start with a sphere. Now, I'm not a very good sculptor, but, and mostly I cannot get from sphere to anything. But what we're going to show you is basically how to get from a sphere into something that's vaguely like your model, and then you're going to use the software to kind of refine it a little bit at the end. Then we're going to do something you actually drew. You drew it, and then the AI is going to sculpt it, and you refine it. And then it's not even a slide up here yet because it came out last night. There's new software that will literally take the top workflow, and you don't have to refine it at all. It actually puts out a nearly perfect model. And we're going to show that at the very end because it's really, really, really brand new. So what we're going to use is something called Meshy and Nomad, and we're going to start with that now. Let's see. So this is Meshy. You can go, if you want to do this at home, it's free to start, meshy.ai, meshy.ai, and you can jump in and start creating your own models. So we're going to do this as a group. So does anybody have an idea for a character that they would like for us to make? I saw this hand first.
Link from the Legend of Zelda.
Link from the Legend of Zelda. I'm going to steer away from anything that's like a known character because sometimes the AI doesn't like to make things that like Disney could sue them for, so or Nintendo could sue them for. So maybe we start with something a little simpler. What about something Link would hold? Like was there a weapon?
Master Sword?
A Master Sword? Yeah. Okay. Let's call it, for our purposes today, can we call it a battle sword? Would that be okay? Okay. And anybody want to what kind of battle sword? Is it a Viking battle sword? Is it a what do we got?
It's more of like just like a regular sword shape.
Perfect. All right. I'm going to say a battle sword that is a regular sword shape and is kind of like a Viking sword for fun. Now, there's 2 types of prompts. Remember earlier when we wrote, hey, ChatGPT, make me a world, and I'm going to do, that was a prompt. You say, hey, this is what I want. And basically you can say, this is what I want, but you can also say, this is what I don't want. So it's called a negative prompt. And that helps filter out some stuff. So we don't want it to be messy. We don't want it to be low poly. We don't want it to be dull. And then let's add fantasy a little bit in there. So we're going to go cartoon style. We're going to click generate. Now it's going to take about 1 minute to generate. It's going to generate something that's not very good. Okay? It's going to generate 3 or 4 options that are not great, but that's okay. It's going to show us options of directions where it might go. We're going to pick one of those and refine it. But it's just going to say, hey, I have some ideas, boss. We're going to throw up 4 things in just a second. You tell me which one of these is closest to what you liked. Then we're going to click refine and bring that into a little bit higher level of detail. While we're waiting for that to load, does anybody have any questions about anything we've talked about so far?
So with the resin, it seems like it'd be a whole lot faster just under the theory that instead of squirting out at each point, you're squirting all at once on a level.
Yeah.
Why isn't it so much faster?
So there are instances where it is plenty faster. And I'm going to answer your question in a little more detail after I click on one of these. So let's talk for a minute. In the back, which one is your favorite? So we're going to call, let's go left, left middle, or right. Which one's your favorite?
Right middle.
I'm talking to him. Don't listen to them.
Yeah.
Right?
I think, actually, I think the left is the most.
That's my man. All right, left. Let's go with left. We're going to click refine. It's going to take a couple of minutes here, and I'm going to go back to answering your question. So he said his question was, well, if you're doing the whole first layer at once by going and flashing it, why isn't it so much faster? The answer is it is, right? It is in some instances. There are kinds of models or prints where resin is much faster, and there are kinds of models and prints where it's not. So the thing about resin is, if I flash each layer, there's a fixed amount of time per how high it is. So every print that's this high will always take the same amount of time. So that means if it's a giant cube that fills the whole build volume, or if it's a tiny sword that goes straight up, right? So that's a fixed amount of time to go up. Whereas a FDM printer can go squirt, squirt, and so that actually might be faster to squirt a sword, because I can just go right up the middle, and I'm not wasting the time to do the whole thing. Because the exposure time is the same across the whole bed. So it depends on what you're printing. It'll be faster or slower depending on that. Anybody else have a question? Yes?
So when you're taking out the support beams from an FDM model, is there a chance that the model itself could get damaged?
Wow, great question. And so we're getting a mix of kind of practical and general, and I love that. So he said, remember the support structures that I said that would hold up that print? Sometimes when the plastic draws over the top of those support structures, it damages the print, like it fuses to the print a little bit. When you remove them, it kind of tears it away. You have to sand that and stuff like that. Wouldn't it be cool if we could make those support structures out of something that was dissolvable? Right? So they have a whole line of dissolvable filament that dissolves in water that you can print that support structure with, dunk it in the water, that all dissolves away, and then you've got just the print without any damage. So a lot of different ways, or you could just sand it. We have a trick for sanding prints if you ever need to do this. We coat our prints in liquid, don't do this with your parents. Coat your prints in liquid super glue, and then use some sacrificial sandpaper, some like 150, 220, and we just basically rub it, and that friction sets the super glue really fast. And as we're rubbing it, it basically pulls all the layer lines in, and we get really smooth models in seconds as opposed to hours of sanding. Oh, we got a refined model. Okay, let's go into it. So we started with a battle sword that is a regular sword shape and kind of like a Viking sword fantasy. It's not messy or low poly or dull. Let's see what we got. So this is what we got. Now, let's see. There we go. Right? So we have this sword. Now, it looks kind of like a balloon sword, which is kind of the way that this AI handles anything that's sharp. But you can see pretty quickly we've got a sword that meets your brief. And if you wanted to take this into the next step, we would look at some of these different geometries. We would export it, and we would put it into, so remember I said earlier you start with a sphere when you do your sculpting? Well, wouldn't it be easier to start with this? I could get there so much faster if I started with this. So then we're going to go in and refine it, smooth it, make the edges a little bit sharper. And you can do that with any kind of a free sculpting software here. You can export an OBJ or STL, and you can just go right into sculpting. So now you're sculpting something that is much closer to what you were trying for. Okay? So now that's with us just basically telling it what to do. What if we wanted it to, instead of just telling it what to do, what if we wanted to tell something else to make a picture of what it could do? So let's try that. let's go into, who's used Midjourney before? Anybody used Midjourney before? All right, so we're going to talk about Midjourney. Midjourney is image creation software. And we're going to jump right in. So who has an idea for a character? Someone on this side of the room that I haven't heard from. Character. What kind of character? No pressure. I'm going to go start the prompt. You think about it for just a second, okay? Because I have some hints for this that help me make a little bit better of a prompt. And you just interrupt me as soon as you know what character you want.
A battle-hardened fantasy warrior.
Okay. Yeah, that didn't take long. All right. Male or female, or do you have a name?
Male, and we'll just name him Alexander.
Love it. All right, so this is Alexander is a battle-hardened fantasy warrior. Okay. You got any color preference on what they're wearing?
Very, very dark sunshade.
Purple, and we'll see what it comes up with. I'll just say outfit. Okay, and then we're gonna hit go. Now, out of its brain, whatever you want to call it, what AI thinks with, it's gonna decide on what that should be. Now, how does it do this? Okay. Well, the easiest way to explain how AI works, and there really isn't an easy way, but the easiest way to do it is basically an input comes in, it gets divided into a bunch of coin flips. Those coin flips output something that resembles what you think, and then we train it to basically turn on and off coin flips depending on what we think is going to give us the best result. So it's going through and looking at each part of this this big square, this 3x2 square we've given it, and it's going to throw up some noise like the static we saw in the video earlier, and it's going to say, hey, which part of this static looks the most like a battle-hardened warrior princess of some sort? And then it keeps refining that over and over again until you get options like this. So this is our character, okay? That character's never been drawn before, never been made before. It's completely thought up originally, and it has the skill to be able to kind of show us what different angles look like. And we can go ahead and upscale one of those. Which one is your favorite? Let's call this top, bottom, right bottom. Which one?
Right bottom.
Right bottom, love it. Okay, so we're going to upscale that, and it's going to take 30, 40 seconds here. All right, so this is our finished character, okay? Pretty rad. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to take and grab a screenshot of that, and then we're going to throw that, instead of our text prompt that we wrote earlier, let's throw an image in there. So let's go back, and then let's go image to 3D. And then we're going to say Alexander. I'm going to generate that. Now this is going to take a second or two. And as we do, we're going to answer a couple more questions. Does anybody have questions about what we've covered so far?
Midjourney was what you were using free software or purchase?
Great question. So a lot of these are free right now. People are trying to figure out how to monetize or make money on these things. Midjourney is free to a point, and then you can pay for kind of more premium access for different things like additional credits, or like we have the fast mode turned on, stuff like that. Costs a little bit. Most of these are wet your toe for free and then pay if you really want to dive in. And then Meshy is free as well. The software we're using here is free up until a point. You know, you can buy credits and kind of get things through a little bit faster. And then the one we're going to finish on is a little more expensive. So.
And that's Nomad?
Nomad is $17, pretty negligible. But the software that we use to generate the new one that just came out, I think I paid $60 for that model, and then you pay it per model basis. The $60, my brother-in-law's in the audience. He works in kind of the modeling space. And when I showed him the model and just said, what would you pay someone to make this model? The range was in the kind of $10,000 to $15,000 range. So to get it for $60 is a pretty good bargain, unless you're a modeler. And then it's not so great. Who else had a question while we're waiting?
Resin printing, does that need a lot of ventilation?
Oh my gosh, such good questions. I wish I would have thought to cover that earlier. Resin printing is super annoying and messy. It's gross, it's goopy, it gets everywhere. You kind of need a dedicated space for it. And then if you have that dedicated space, then it's pretty reasonable, but you want to make sure you have ventilation. So resin, typically as we encountered, is something called a cumulative toxin, meaning that it never leaves your body. So if you get it on you or in you, it's there forever. So a little bit might not hurt you. A lot of it, not a good idea. So always wear gloves, ventilator, work in a well-ventilated space when and ever possible.
Same as like if you were working with epoxy resin?
Yeah, so basically they're the same, just different kicking agents. Like epoxy is a 2-part, whereas resin's a 1-part, but yeah, absolutely. Any other questions while I give it this last 1%? Yes, sir.
Will manufacturers continue doing injection molding, or will they eventually also go to 3D printing in mass quantities?
If I knew, I wouldn't be here, bud. No, it's a great question. Will they continue? Like, so, I think it's inevitable that people are going to chase quick, like just like fashion, chase fast fashion. Injection is going to chase fast injection. How they get there, I don't know. The newest thing I'm aware of that's interesting is we're still going to use injection molding because there's basically nothing faster. You have 2-part mold, you squeeze it together, you push a bunch of plastic in it, you pop it open, you have a part. It's really, really fast. So what's happening now is people are using, the most expensive part of injection molding is the machine. The second most is the mold. A mold will cost you $60,000. So to be able to, like, they can go up to $500,000, $600,000. But like for the parts we make, $50,000 to $60,000. So that's really expensive. We're working on, and lots of other people are working on, 3D printable molds. So you basically get really nice resin, really high-end resin. You make that into the mold. You put that mold in aluminum frames. Now you have your disposable injection mold. We actually have an injection molding rig at our shop where you can do this exact process. That's probably more likely in the near term, but we'll have to see. Okay, let's see Alexander. I will warn you, this may not go great. All right, so here's Alexander, our model. And as promised, not great, guys. But you know what it is? It's a great job. It's pretty terrible. We're gonna say for our demonstration purposes, like I said, this stuff is brand new though. We're talking in the last 5-6 weeks this came out, okay? The other one we're gonna show, which is considerably better, last 72 hours it came out. But this is a great jumping off point. You can start here, put it into your sculpting program, and instead of now starting with a sphere, you start with this. We're gonna get a lot closer, a lot faster. It's not perfect yet, but there is something that is kind of perfect. This is called Kadim? I'm not certain. This is brand new. And basically the idea here is, you know, in our last program we had, I can just show you. We had all of these really cool images here, like all these different turnarounds, right? But we only used one of them to make our image because the software we're using could only allow you to put one image in. But whereas Kadim will actually allow us to input all the images we want. And it will use all of that as a reference. Let me go ahead and jump in here. So I did one last night and let it think on it on our way over. Because like I said, this is brand new. So the images I gave it were this string right here. Kind of like what we just did. But I put all of them in. And said, all right, now you've got all these different views. What can you make me now? And this is what it output. And it should scare you. Or at least if you are a modeler.
What?
Shockingly good. Let me see if I can get this to rotate for us. Hold on here. Yeah. So you're talking about something that is orders of magnitude increased in fidelity. Now, is this final production ready? No. Is it darn close? Like, shockingly good. It's making intelligent decisions on where to put chamfers and edges, and it's mighty fine. And if you were working on a video game, you could import this model right now, texture it, and it could largely be done. So that's the kind of thing we're talking about. We're moving really close to this. Like I said, this has been out for 72 hours as software, so it's brand new. But we're getting really, really close. Now, I don't think you're going to go into making a new toy line with this tomorrow, but in the next 3 years, I think we're going to be able to upload our sketches and go straight to model. Yeah, yes, sir.
A couple quick points then. Where's that not quite ready for you on that model?
Right. So, well, what I don't know about this model is the internal topology. Like, we have to work with like a lot of specific designs for molding something. So I couldn't necessarily ship this directly to a mold maker. I could ship it to somebody who can finalize it and get it close. So it's a very good approximation. I'm going to go here first and then these two. Yes, sir.
Well, and if you needed joints, you would have to go a lot farther.
Exactly, yeah. And there's actually somebody here downstairs. If you go to the 3D scanning booth, I think her name is Mary. She's a really good sculptor as well. She actually does action figures. So we could like give this to someone like Mary. She could turn it around in the next couple of days and have an action figure that's ready to go. Yes, ma'am.
What software made this amazingly close?
Great. So it's called Kadim. It's the one we were just kind of going through here. I don't actually know how to pronounce it. Kadim. But basically, I uploaded all of our different images, and I'm wondering if I can see those. Yeah, here you go. You can see them down here. So I uploaded all those different turnaround images, and it output. Yeah. Oh, did it texture it? No. Okay.
Could it potentially work for the Alexander image we just generated?
It could. It takes a while. So that's the reason I'm not doing it as a live demo. So it takes about 4 to 5 hours and about $60 to get a model like this. Yes, sir.
You mentioned putting this into like a video game software. Like how realistic is it to just generate a rig so that you can animate this image?
So there's an AI for generating rigs. It's pretty darn good. So let me tell you this is a world that there's someone doing this right now. I don't know who it is, but lots of people are doing this. They are saying, AI, write me an idea for a game. Great. AI, write the code for that game. Great. AI, make all the characters for that game. Awesome. AI, figure out how to put this on, PS2 or PS5 or whatever the new one is. Great. Thank you. The idea is you can literally use this for your whole pipeline if you want to. Now, it's not going to be perfect, but with like a little bit of work, it's darn good. Yes?
I just had a question. I know you said you started this last night, but do you know how long it actually took for it to finalize that model?
So I don't. It was 4 or 5 hours. Like I kept checking it because I was excited. But like I think 4 or 5 hours is a pretty good guess. I'm not certain though. It's going to be, this is super intensive. Like I've never seen anything like this. So it's beyond my kind of scope of understanding to know how they did it. So I'm not really certain. Any other questions? We've got about 5 minutes left, so we can just jump into full-on questions from here on out. So
that 4 or 5 hours, was that on your machine or was it remotely?
Yep. So what I uploaded it to a website. The website must have some bank of computers somewhere that's doing this. I have no concept of how it's doing it as well, so I really don't know. But my guess would be, I know it wasn't on my machine because my machine was off. Questions? That's all. Yes.
I'm curious where you see like the toy market going. Like video games seem like they're everywhere. Like what kid wants to play with a physical toy?
I'm going to ignore the really hostile tone of that question. No, it's a great question. Like we're trying to figure that out. We're losing every day to this. Every toy market in report is telling us we're losing to it all the time. We're trying to figure that out. I don't know how to answer that. Like we're really working on it. I think the answer is in things that the phone can't replicate, social experiences that require you to be in person. So gamifying toys. We're also we have a deep project right now where we're working with people in the video game industry to learn, hey, what do people like about video games? Can we bring those moments to toys? Like skill progression is a big thing in video games, but you don't skill progress on toys unless it's a bop it or something that requires it. So how do we bring that in? And we're just trying to figure it out. But the reality is the world is changing at a pace that we just can't keep up with. So we're kind of just hanging on for dear life and trying to figure it out. In the back?
I had one question. I don't remember which one it was called, but it was the first one we did to make the sword. Like you said, this one, you said it was free, but then when you said you made the model, it costed $60. Is that the same for the other one?
No. Everything else I've shown you except for this one has been free. You have access to this all. And please find me after this and I'll make sure you have everything you need. And we can also talk about like how to write better prompts, how to make things a little bit more scripted. But yeah, this is kind of, this is just one of those things that it's just so new, gang, that I don't know what to tell you. It's brand new. And it's just kind of crazy. So it's just special. And then that's why they're charging, because it's super cool. Yes, sir.
What is the current status in the future of the materials to be used in 3D printing, hardness, flexibility, softness?
The sky's the limit. His question is, what are the materials? What can you 3D print and where's that going? So the most recent one that I thought was cool was you can 3D print chocolate. That's pretty cool. Like you can make 3D print. That's interesting. You can 3D print wax and then put that wax into like some kind of another casting agent and then basically pour metal into it and the metal will melt the wax and now you got a metal version. You can 3D print metal. They're combining 3D printing and CNCing. So basically like a CNC machine is like a let's say a CNC lathe or a CNC mill where you're taking bits and you're grinding metal and you're creating parts that way. Well, instead of starting with a giant chunk of metal, what if we start with a piece of metal that's almost exactly what we want? So they 3D print the buck and then they machine away just a little bit of extra. So the materials are going to be everything and anything. Like they're 3D printing concrete and they're 3D printing houses. That's a pretty common practice right now in some countries where they just need a bunch of houses quickly. So anything you can imagine, I think we'll be able to 3D print with soon. Yeah. We got about 2 more minutes. Does anybody else have any questions? Yes, sir.
If you could just talk a little bit about like intellectual property. That's been a theme through this, like even the questions and the ideas. On demand, use at home of like someone else, like Mickey Mouse pets or something like that.
Yes.
Where do you see that going?
Well, Mickey Mouse is off copyright as of like 6 weeks ago, so I can do whatever I want. That's not actually true. Actually, only the Steamboat Willie Mickey is off copyright. So this is a really big debate for which I don't have the scope to discuss, nor the expertise to really weigh in. I'm not a very good artist, so no AI is stealing the stuff I make. But the question here is, how does AI know how to do all this? Well, it steals. It scrapes the internet and it steals people who worked very hard to get very good, and it says, thank you, I'll just copy that and put it over here and make money on it. So there is an inherent debate here. I don't have the right answer. I can tell you that if Napster has anything to say about it, we know that once the technology is loose on the world, it really doesn't come back. So do I think we're getting away from this anytime soon? No. I think that if you look at the progression of these AI models in the last maybe 2 months, they've pulled back on the ability to do stuff like Link or Spider-Man. They basically told you, no, we won't do that. So clearly Disney got mad. That doesn't mean AI can't do it. It just means you have to pay someone to make your own that will do it. So we really can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. The question I would ask is, how do we get away from this kind of the fear side of it and more into it's just a bicycle, how do we use it for good kind of a thing? Because as a tool, it's a really strong tool. I don't know where we're going to fall down on or shake out on the whole IP thing. It's a really confusing and scary time for people who've created IP. As somebody who makes IP as a company, I get that. But we have to be a little bit agnostic to that because we have to follow the tools and chase the trends. So, yeah. One more back here.
I had one more comment.
Yes, sir.
I know a friend at my school who knows some different AI like generating platforms. One of them I've heard from him is called Crayon.
Okay.
I just wanted to say.
Yeah, that's great. I'll have to look into that. Yeah. So there's so many. We actually are building our own right now. So like that's how easy it is to make them. We're making our own GPT models right now that are experts in some of the boards we use. So we use electronic boards that kind of let us prototype things. We basically uploaded all those schematics into our own GPT so that now interns and new people that want to work on electronics for us can just type in, I want electronics that flash and make sounds and do this when you push a button. And then it outputs all the code that you can upload to our boards, and now the boards will do exactly what you want to do. So we're building our own. It's kind of as much new AIs as there are people who want to make them. So I'm sorry, I'm going to have to kill the question because we're actually out of time. But I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for coming out. If you have any questions, we have a booth downstairs. I'm going to be there for a little while, and then I'm going to get some lunch. But please let me know if you have any questions.